Welcome to another episode of Bringing Down the Grindhouse, a podcast where we discuss horror in media. And today, we're going to be discussing Blade and Blade 2. I'm Mitch.
I'm Murr.
And I'm Jonathan.
So, I've been seeing Blade, or have watched Blade, often since I was a child.
Same.
It was a big action flick when I was younger. It's cool to see it on, like, whatever that channel was.
It was like late 90s, so it was like 98, and then
yeah, it was on TV and stuff, like, and they had all like the bad parts.
Well, it was like when everybody had just regular television. There was the streaming did not exist in our childhood. Which
not even
weird
DVR
to think about, which is really fucking weird to think about. That streaming was not a thing until we were like 20.
This is my first time seeing either of these movies.
What?
I've known about them for years, and I've heard so many good things and bad things and in between things.
So you had no idea what to expect watching them.
Oh, what I knew to expect was that it was about vampires, and it starred
Right.
Wesley Snipes,
Right.
looking
That's all you
fucking
need to
cool as
know.
fuck.
That's all you need to know.
That's all I knew about it. And the thing is, I didn't know it was gonna have so much. I need a word to describe. There's like a cheese barrier around this entire movie.
Oh yeah, it like lives in its own
fucking
world.
awesome.
Well, it was like one of the first comic book adaptations from Marvel.
Same with like, I think it's like the first black superhero
this is,
movie
this is
too,
what
right?
this is what gave them the money to set off like all of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. The money they made off of these first 3 films is what set up for them to do like the Avengers Initiative.
And like Iron Man and shit.
It displayed the potential for superhero movies.
And people loved it.
Yeah, and they went with a really edgy start as well.
Right.
Like, Blade's pretty gnarly.
I'm glad it's a rated R movie. Like,
hell yeah.
They didn't fucking censor anything about it.
Here's the thing about Marvel movies in the past, because they had like what? They had
They had a few.
Daredevil and like The Punisher
God,
and
Daredevil was awful.
some other shit. But here's the thing, like Marvel was really dark and ominous.
It
back
started
in the day.
gritty.
And then it got comical and funny and more kid-friendly. While DC was the opposite. They started comical and friendly, and then they went towards darker shit as it went on. And then they just flip-flopped.
Well, DC was trying to find their audience. Well, they're still trying to find their audience, but you're right. They started off making very whimsical comic things and then went the other direction. And then Marvel was like, we got to start with this gritty shit, and realized that they can't get kids to watch it if it's rated R, so they started doing PG style movies, and that's how you got Iron Man and all the other ones that aren't quite as violent. But they do owe Blade and the whole trilogy really a big credit for bringing superheroes to the front of movies and film, because people really enjoyed watching Blade. Despite it having pretty bad reviews, it made a lot of fucking money.
Correct me if I'm wrong. Is this the first like on-screen adaptation of a black superhero?
No,
No,
can't
it's
be.
not. It can't
Well,
be.
you know what?
Maybe
I'd have
in a mainstream audience.
I have to
perhaps.
research it, but it's very possible.
Because I remember looking at Wesley Snipes talking about like, most people are gonna look me over, and they're just gonna go straight to Black Panther, as like being one of the first.
I'm glad you mentioned that, because this movie was originally supposed to be Black Panther. Like, Black Panther was slotted in to be made as a superhero movie, and it didn't come together. So they're like, you know what we should do? We should make Blade. And they made
Which
Blade.
is a fucking random thing, dude.
Right.
It's like out there for Marvel.
Well, it was because they were able to secure the rights really easily.
That makes sense.
So, which is part of the production notes, is that the original creators, the writer and the artist, they sued Marvel because they basically took the rights from them and then started making movies and didn't credit them, except for that one credit in the first movie where it says based on characters made by, and then it's so quick that you don't even really notice it. But they were trying to get credit for the rest of the films because they created these characters, but they were unsuccessful in suing Marvel, because who wins those kinds of things?
Not the little guy.
No. So it is kind of fucked up that they didn't get like any money for this.
Do we know anything more about the production of Blade 1?
There's a whole bunch of stuff. So it was directed by Stephen Norrington. He was also the one who did the writing, and he's most known for Death Machine and The League of Extraordinary Gentlemen, which we've mentioned before. Mm-hmm. It was written by David S. Goyer, who's known for writing the Dark Knight trilogy, aka Batman Begins, The Dark Knight, and The Dark Knight Rises. Or what is it? Yeah, The Dark Knight Rises. And then he also wrote Dark City. So if you ever watched that weird sci-fi film, he was the one who wrote that. But like I mentioned before, it was produced by Marvel Enterprises. Like before they kind of consolidated their name and started buying everything up, they were taking a chance by making films and wanted to make some money. And it was originally supposed to be Black Panther, but it ended up being Blade. And what was funny is that LL Cool J was supposed to be the lead role at some point, but they were like, no, we're probably gonna go with other people. And they also considered Denzel Washington and Lawrence Fishburne for the lead characters, which would have changed the movie entirely if it was either one of them.
I think Wesley Snipes brings his own
perfect.
charm.
He's like
he does the
perfect
thing
for that role. I can't imagine anybody else as this character. And like he did help kind of create the character on screen when he was being filmed. He started adding in like what the character's like. But it's interesting because the comic book character of Blade is actually much nicer. He's very much like your everyday kind of working class person who was very nice to most of the people he met. But Blade kind of gave him this attitude where he didn't really like anybody, and it was this really good badass, which fit for the 90s aesthetic that they created for the movie.
Yeah, I've never actually read the Blade comics at all. I just haven't had time to. I was thinking about it for this episode.
Right.
I was like, I'm totally going to read these comics. And then,
Oh, it's worth the time.
Yeah, I'm sure they're good and whatnot, but I just kind of
You'll run into like Spider-Man and Morbius and some of the other characters for if you read the comics, because they're like basically in the same city. But I mean, for the villain, for Deacon Frost, Jet Li was actually offered the role, but he decided not to do it and went to do Lethal Weapon 4 instead. And so they decided to go with a different person for Deacon Frost and made him a lot younger. His character in the comics is very old because he's a vampire that got turned like in his middle age.
Yeah, in the movie he's
very young.
Much younger than the rest of the council.
I love whoever they chose for him. I need to find the name of the person. Steven Dorff as Deacon Frost is fucking awesome. I think he's so eccentric, and he's a really he seemed like he was theater acting the whole time, just over the top. And he was just arrogant the whole time through.
There's like that whole scene where they take the old vampire up to the cliff to have him fried. And they just look like the biggest bunch of like cyber goth dorks like I've ever seen.
They're like rubbing sunblock on each other in the car. And
Yeah.
it keeps cutting back and forth like it's a sex scene. And you're like, what is going on?
What is going on? Oh my God.
And they put on the full like biker uniform.
Yeah,
with, like,
the helmet and
helmets.
gloves, leather jacket. It's pretty funny. I liked it. It made me laugh.
I mean,
No, it is. I'm
melting
just commenting more on the aesthetic of the 90s,
Right.
and so they're totally like it's just totally like that.
They specifically made it that way. Like they want it to have that 90s goth aesthetic.
So on with the 90s thing. I mean, it's in the fashion, obviously, with all the leather and everything that is around it, but also with these clubs and the music that they use, the industrial as well as breakbeat and drum and bass. A lot of that from the 90s.
They blended a lot of stuff together.
It's
for
like
these.
It's pretty much like a love letter to the Prodigy.
Yeah.
They wanted the Prodigy to create their music.
It should have been in there.
Well,
I was like,
they were doing a tour, so they couldn't.
Yeah, no, I was like literally like, is Firestarter or Breathe gonna start anytime now? I was like, I'm expecting this.
I'm so glad you keep hitting like exactly what was part of like the production. They asked them to do the music for them, and they're like, sorry, we're like on tour. And so they instead got a collaboration of a bunch of hip-hop artists and electronic artists together to release it from fucking Virgin Records and Immortal Records.
Oh my God, that's super cool.
They brought those two companies together to bring the soundtrack out.
So
I mean, speaking of like the music for Blade is just really good. It suits every scene really well.
Yeah,
it creates a really nice atmosphere that's still decently dark, but also just flows in like a very cool way, I would say.
It seems really appropriate for what they created. It lives in its own universe, especially because it's its own piece of like vampire like media. They have like their own rules. It's really condensed to like just that family that Deacon Frost is a part of and what they're doing. And then you get sort of an extension of that in the second movie when you get to see like the lineage, which is like the older vampire, which I can't remember his name. What was it?
I don't know. He's just like the really fucking old guy who honestly looks very similar to the main villain in that
Eli
movie.
Damaskinos.
Yeah.
He's like one of the ancient vampires from the second one. So you got to see all of these things come together, and it's a comic book adaptation that was meant to be stylized. And they like didn't pull back anything when they were doing the stylized action, all of the lines, the way that Blade himself acts. is very comic book.
Yeah, that's what I was telling Mitch when we saw it. Like, this is shot like a comic book movie.
It is. It really is.
He like fist pumps after shooting one of the vampires with a stake. He's just like, yes, and like pulls his fist and then shoots him again. It's Quinn. It's when he spikes Quinn to the wall in the beginning and then lights him on fire. He like smiles when it like pans up to his face. And I'm like, this is probably the coolest intro to any character I've seen on screen.
Oh man, the entire like blood rave in the very beginning is such a good start for this movie as well, because it gets like the mood right, it gets the atmosphere correct, it gets the espionage of the vampires that are in this universe.
Right.
It like shows their hold on society, what they're able to convince people to do.
Yeah, I mean, like, they're running backdoor alley like raves for a bunch of blood, you know.
Yeah,
but they do that all around the world because it happens in the second movie. But what Mitch was saying, it starts not an atmosphere, but it starts a universe that this whole movie is set in. Vampires are ingrained in society, and even Blades discusses it. That's a vampire. That's a fucking vampire. Those two whores on the street are vampires. Like, he's just, you know.
The only line you have where he can tell is he says that he can tell that they're vampires by the way that they move. And that's the only explanation you get for it. That and the way they smell, because apparently he can smell them. So that's just something that gets brought up. And they don't really do a whole lot of explaining unless it's like really a throwaway line in the film. But I mean, that was one of the biggest criticisms for the film, was that they felt the characters were not fleshed out enough. You didn't get enough backstory for most people. But I think it's just because they wanted to focus in on the action. They wanted you to be like introduced to Blade, and then he jumped right into the action.
Yeah, there's not a lot of lore going on in here. No. You're just sort of like, this is vampire guy. Right. There is a conflict. Blade is a coming.
There's actually, so he is actually a human vampire hybrid because his mom was bit when she was pregnant, and you get to see that bit in the beginning of the film. But there's actually a name for it. He's a dampier, however you pronounce it.
Yeah.
And that's like a legit thing from folklore. You can go and find old stories about that. And so they actually made that a real thing. But in the comics, he is just a person who's immune to being turned into a vampire. And then he only gets his powers when he gets bitten by Morbius, who is sort of a vampire. They like couldn't get a copyright on vampire and like blood sucking. So technically he controls plasma in Marvel, and that's how they got around like the blood thing. And so in the comics he gets bit by Morbius, gets all these powers, and that's how he becomes that character. And then they got adapted for the film so that it would make sense, and they weren't just like, no, he's just immune to turning into a vampire. And he could have all of the extra strength and everything, so they didn't have to worry about what are like his physical limits, because he doesn't really he seems pretty powerful all the way through up until he starts fighting certain characters. So it seemed kind of balanced at some point.
Well, the thing is, like, he has these powers from the vampiric side of vampiric side of his blood. So like he could jump super fast. He does these insane double flips that are like fucking cut super crazy
every single time.
Does,
it's
like,
a flip.
CD
and this
CGI.
All of the CGI in this movie, and even in the second one, is
questionable.
Pretty, yeah. Sometimes it's like really good, and sometimes you're like, they clearly cut it right there, and then just had him fall on the ground and like, land in that
loved
stance.
It.
They're great because it even like adds to like the comic book aesthetic, exactly. I think, and so that's I think I would
in the
agree
second movie when he's fighting Nisa in front of the lights, when they first show up there to like give him a message, it looks like a video game. Because they're both fighting in front of those lights, and they're like sword fighting.
CGI.
Yeah, it's all CGI. You can tell because of how jerky the movement is. But I mean, it ended up working really well for that scene. But after that, I just got stuck on all of their outfits. Because like every member that shows up has a different outfit, and it's so 90s. It's like
that
90s
one guy
goth.
That looks like he really wants to be in Led Zeppelin.
That could be like four of them. Which one?
In the second movie, yeah. Well, one of them wants to be in Led Zeppelin really bad.
Are you talking
the
about
the guy that dies first?
Yeah, the one with long hair.
Yeah, that one. He looks like he wants to be in Led Zeppelin.
Wasn't that
what was his
Priest?
name?
No, wait.
His name is Priest.
Yeah, it was Priest. You're right.
Let me double check, because
also we have like that guy who's going for the samurai aesthetic, kind of.
Yeah.
Like,
who's Donnie fucking Yen?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry, Donnie
awesome.
Yen, who was also in Star Wars Rogue One.
He was. Yeah, he was.
Yeah, that was fucking crazy. I didn't realize it was him until he was in. He's in Ip Man. And he's in Rogue.
Oh, he is a Ip Man, isn't he? Oh,
Yeah.
and then in Rogue One he plays. What's the name of that character?
Something with a C. It's like Cherwick or something like that.
Oh, I don't remember.
What's his line he says all the time?
I am one with the Force.
The
The
Force
Force
is
is
with
with
me.
me.
Yeah,
Yeah,
what it
he
is.
says
Okay.
that as he like walks out into all
Yeah.
of the fucking laser beam fire, and then it gets out.
Dude's ripped. Has some moves in this movie.
He does.
He's wearing like eyeliner too, which is
Hey,
great.
I want to talk to you about fucking Norman Reedus though.
Oh,
Okay,
also, what a piece of shit. But
Hold
Norman
on.
Reedus is an awesome actor. I just don't like his character.
Straight up-
Before we talk too much about Blade 2, though, shouldn't we talk about it's like who wrote it?
Yeah. So it was the same writer. So it was David S. Goyer, but the director for the first film turned down the opportunity to direct the second one. And so instead they were like, hey, we should get Guillermo del Toro. And he was like, fuck yeah, I'll do this. And he came on to the film, and he actually didn't really change too much of the script. He ended up kind of watching the first one, seeing what the aesthetic was, and then tried to copy it for the second one so that he wouldn't make something drastically different, because he felt that most sequels at the time were just failing.
This is also a good sequel too, so they did right by doing that.
They made more in the box office. So the first one made what
It broke even.
132.1, and then it broke even at 132.1 million.
Yeah, the first one didn't make quite as much as the second. I think the second one made a lot more, I think, because there was a lot of recognizable people in the film.
Mm-hmm.
So they had like Ron Perlman, they had fucking God, what is his name? Chris Christopherson, who was Whistler. And he was
He was in the original too.
Yeah, he was in the first one, he was in the second one, and then no one really knew who Norman Reedus was at that time.
How did you guys feel about them bringing him back, like in a cloning chamber sort of thing?
It kind of made the first scene where he's dying and like he has that moment with Blade like mean nothing. So I was
Yeah.
just like, oh, all right, well, he's back now. I remember watching the originals and being excited because I liked his character a lot, but it also kind of lessened his moment at the end there where he's like trying not to be sad about it, so he's just like, walk away, you stupid son of a bitch, and then like he just shoots himself.
Well, here's
Yeah.
the thing though, like for me, I'm just thinking like, what do you do with the bullet? Like, where'd the bullet go?
What do you mean?
Because there's no fucking wound. You don't see a wound on the dude.
Well, yeah, because he got healed in the chamber.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, they didn't fix his leg, which also doesn't
Vampire
follow or track,
tech.
but whatever.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like
That's a good point, actually.
They're gonna shoot him in the. He's gonna get.
So they're
shot
gonna
in
fix,
the face.
yeah, they're gonna fix
He's
his
not gonna fix
gunshot
his
wound,
leg.
but not his leg. I feel like that was just them being petty.
Yeah.
They didn't want to fix his leg just in case he does get broken out. I don't know. Maybe I don't know. There's a lot of shit that.
That was like the only thing that made me go like,
Well, he does
But-
a phenomenal role. What is he for Blade though?
What do you mean?
He's
What-
like his
who is
tech
he?
guy.
Yeah. I mean, like, explain what he does for him though.
Well, he makes his weapons. He like gives him advice. He saved him when he was a kid, so he ends up being like his father figure.
That's what I was just
in the
about
film,
to say.
like
yeah.
really strongly, but like the kind of dad that is like rough with you and like not going to be super nice most of the time, but he is openly expressing his emotions to him. It's not like he's being mean and not showing him any affection or that he cares about him. Like when he's injecting him with the like serum that he's using, he like holds his hand all the way through it the first time you see it, and then the other times he kind of does it on his own. So they have an interesting relationship. And he definitely cares about him too, because he goes and saves him and doesn't kill him. He brings him back in hopes that he'll get through like the transformation, which he does because he's just an old badass. So it ends up working out where they have their relationship get displayed in both films. And I think it was a good thing to have that specific actor for that character, because he's been in a few other things. He's just a little older. But I mean, so both films were really criticized for their lack of character development. That was like the main thing that you would see for criticism whenever anyone was talking about the films. And it was because you got like a huge cast in the second one where you got to see like all of the members of the Blood Pact and you didn't know anything about them.
It reminds me of Alien Resurrection.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you have all this whole crew. That's funny. Ron Perlman's in that.
Yeah,
too.
Ron Perlman is also the asshole of the group.
He is an asshole.
in both
Also,
movies.
Ron Perlman never takes off his sunglasses the entire film.
Dude, his bald
You never see his
fucking
eyes.
head, man.
Yo, so his introduction is hilarious because he walks up and is straight up racist to Wesley Snipes, where he like leans in. He even covers his mouth a little, and he's just like, and he's like, "What was that?" And he was like, "Yeah, we were wondering, can you blush?" And Blade attaches a bomb to his head immediately. Mm-hmm. He's just like, "Oh, what?" Actually, he slaps him twice first.
Yep,
he shows him like the little trick with his knife.
Yeah, he's like, "Look, I'm gonna do it again. I'm gonna do it." Like,
he's
spent
like
2 years
goading him into stabbing him with the stake. Where he's like, "What? Why are you looking at them? You don't need permission. He's like, stab me. I'm right here."
Well, the Blood Pack, they spent 2 years of their lives training to hunt down Wesley Snipes.
Yeah,
and then now they're finally coming together to face.
I mean, they're vampires. How much time is that really to them?
Not a lot. But still, like, that's what, like, 2 years.
Yeah, and then they just get their asses handed to them.
Yeah, they
like,
really
immediately.
do. I mean, they are all younger vampires, I guess.
But they're going up against, like, a new kind of thing. I don't really know what to
right.
call it.
I guess we should mention that in the film, I'm assuming everybody watched these before you come in and listen to this. But in the second one, there's obviously the hybrid that's starting to kill vampires and humans. And he fucking hates vampires because his own dad turned him into that. He like mutated the vampire line. And then he had this like predator style mouth where his jaw just split open. And it was the weirdest thing. I didn't know how I felt about that.
It was like he was like a predator face hugger thing.
Yeah, it was like a weird hybrid mix of that.
Yeah, and then it like sucks blood out of necks at like a faster rate, and then it turns them with the virus, and it's a whole biological disaster.
I mean, his character though is awesome. I like his character.
Yeah.
Nomak is like, I think I really enjoyed the actor who did him because he's just so fanatic. He's just a crazy fanatic the whole way through. And I liked that he didn't care about his appearance. He like wore like poor man's clothes the whole time through. And he spent like half the movie with blood on his face. Like, I don't think his face was ever clean besides the first scene that you see him. And it ends up being pretty funny later on when he's like asking a drug dealer, "Oh, you know, like, what have you got to sell?" And he's telling him all the special, like, fucking crack that he can sell him. And then he's like, "What if I want you?" And, like, throws him through a window and pulls a piece of glass out of his face and licks it. You're like, this is so weird.
They are strange. I don't remember what they call this species of vampire, if they have a name for it.
They called it the Reaper strain.
Oh, the Reaper strain. Yeah. Okay, so they're Reaper vampires.
Yeah,
gotcha.
I guess technically they'd be Reaper I
guess so. But they I really enjoyed Blade's fight with was it Nomak?
Yeah, the ending fight was amazing.
Yeah, it's so good because and the one with the assassin as well. The one over the lights that you were talking about, like that fight's really good.
Oh yeah, when he meets Nisa and the other guy, who were really fucking cool. Like they're pretty like cool looking vampires. She has like these like dot eyebrows going on with her makeup.
You can tell that they're like more on the side of, well, we are trained to kill you, but like we'll be your teammate until then.
They're like the rich elite of the vampire. She's like Damaskino's daughter. And she ends up being part of like that royal family. And there's even classism amongst the vampires where like Snowman, I think, or Priest are just like, all these vampires aren't even like pure blood, which means that they were like not born vampires. They were turned, and they like hated all of them for that.
Yeah, there's definitely classism among the vampire groups. They don't like non-pure bloods or half bloods or whatever they call them. And it's just sort of, I mean, I guess maybe that's kind of like a depthless like idea to go with, but it makes sense. I understand it. So I get why, but I do get why people think that this movie has very little character development in it, because it really just cuts to the action and whatnot. You're like, very little is explained. And on the end, does it really need to be explained for this movie to be enjoyable? I don't think so. It's something that you can definitely like, you don't need for the Blade series, really.
I mean, you could technically watch the second film without watching the first one, and you would be all right, because he gives you a short intro at the beginning to kind of remind you of who he is and like what he's doing, which is really just hunting vampires. You don't really need to know anything else about him. And in the first movie, you kind of get to see him confront the fact that his mom gets reincarnated as a vampire, and then like it's oddly sexual, and I don't know why they decided to do something like that. But and then fucking Deacon Frost is like fucking his mom. So like no one else noticed that?
Oh, we noticed that.
Because like
Ross is pretty nasty, man.
Every time I've mentioned this movie, no one ever mentions the fact that like he reincarnated his mom as a vampire and she's like in Deacon Frost's bed.
Which is like some weird fucking like floating, I don't know how this.
It's just a weird like power flex on someone else where it's like, oh yeah, no, I brought your mom back to life just to fuck her, and you're like, what the hell? Like, why is he? What is he?
This little man so angry.
He really was like a small stature person, which was really funny to me because he was just so like proud of who he was.
He's short and he wants to be a god.
There's also, there's those scenes where it's just like, nah, we're not gonna let you do this, Deacon. He's like, okay, I'll see it to your grave then. And you're just like, you're gonna let him walk out this room? What the fuck?
Okay, yeah, I gotta say that all the vampires that are like on that council, they're all fucking bitches. Like, they don't do anything about this little arrogant shit doing something to their council. And I'm just like, what is this? What they are? They just old, like decrepit vampires?
Yeah, that is one thing. He just kind of makes mincemeat of their leader.
Yeah,
and
like
they
no
like
one does
don't
shit.
even. And there's like no real retaliation to that at all.
Nothing.
Maybe the vampires will know that they can't beat him in a fight because he is actually stronger, so they try to politically push him out by not really including him in stuff, which just makes him more mad.
I mean, he ends up killing like all of them.
Yep.
So Deacon Frost, his whole thing is he's trying to get this certain.
It's
I don't know,
called La Magra.
A bunch of events happen so he could become a god, essentially.
It's like a blood god.
Yeah, but I think one of my favorite parts is when his girlfriend is like standing on the side watching all this shit about to unfold, and they have to have 12 delegates of vampire to activate this shit, and they're gonna die.
Yeah, it like pulls out their souls,
and it looks really fucking bad. I'm just gonna say.
Oh yeah, it was terrible CGI. It's like this weird
vampire bat skeleton CGI.
Exactly. It like bursts out of their mouth.
But they're like, oh, you're gonna be one of the first to go, and she's like, no, you're literally just mincemeat for my boyfriend. Like, fuck out of here. You're gonna fucking talk to me like that? And she literally just kills a person immediately with Blade's sword.
Yeah, I gotta say, for anyone who had a lover in this movie, she was pretty down for everything. Like that whole film.
Right.
She did not really like abandon him at any point and was fighting like everybody. And like you said, she killed that one dude like as soon as he made an insult. She was like, what the fuck? What'd you just say? And came over and fucking cut him.
She's like, you're literally gonna be sacrificed. Shut the fuck up.
Well, she even mentioned, she's like, it's about time you guys fucking did something. Like, here you go. And like forces them into the ritual that they perform. So she was kind of crazy. It's funny though, because the description of her on like the Wikipedia page is that she was a fleet-footed vampire. And all I could think of was all of the scenes where you just constantly see her running. Where she's like chasing someone.
She does do that.
Like like in the subway, like when they get away because Blade like grabs the end of the subway train, she's like running on the platform next to it, like almost catching up, and then she kind of gives up. But she's kind of crazy too.
We have to talk about the familiars. Those things are fucking crazy too because they come up a little bit.
So the familiars, if I understood it right, were humans that were doing like the vampire's work in hopes of getting turned into a vampire, right?
Yeah, something like that. They're a part of the cult, and they're a part of what they're doing, but they're more civilian-like, and they're just doing stuff in the everyday. So you got the cop in the first movie, and then you got Scud, right? Is that his name? Scud?
Yeah, Scud ends up being... Well, you don't know at first, but then at the end you find out.
That was the greatest betrayal, like,
I know.
in a movie. Like, you don't ever see that shit
You don't ever
coming.
expect it.
You never expect it because they put him in danger so many times.
Right.
And then they put, like, all the scenes that he's in are in the scenes that a typical, like, sidekick would be in, who's, like, on the outskirts helping.
The guy in the chair.
Yeah, exactly. Just like that. And it caught me off. I was like, what the fuck?
Well, yeah, he could have been killed at several different points, like you said. Like, those hybrid vampires could have killed him at some point.
Oh, yeah, they were, like, swarming his vehicle, about to kill him. All that shit. But I think what was funny was, what is that guy? What's the old man's name? Whistler. So Whistler's like, dude, they got into your security. They scoped it out and they fucked you over. And he's like, nah, bitch. They didn't scope out my security and break it. I gave that shit to them.
I let them in.
I let them in.
Yeah, that was great. And it's funny, too, because at the end when he gets blown up, Whistler's like, oh, man, I was kind of starting to like him.
Yeah, right.
There's a lot of memorable lines from these movies, and they're fucking hilarious.
Yeah, he's like a pot-smoking just guy in the chair, and he just listens to a lot of hip-hop. But, like, I wanted to talk about how he has, like, his Daryl is it Daryl Dixon? Is his name?
From The Walking Dead?
Yeah. So watching this, seeing a young fucking Norman Reedus, I'm like, dude, I could totally see, like, he's pretty much Daryl Dixon already. Like, his mannerisms, how he speaks, how he acts, how he betrays people.
He seemed more like childish and immature in this movie than he did later on in other stuff.
Well, absolutely.
But that was definitely like the character he was going
But
for.
like I could see that coming out of him like from this role already. So I was just like, dude, like it was just cool to see him young.
It's cool to go back and see him though.
Yeah, for sure.
It's just like how it's cool to go see a young Donnie Yen, who was just really young in this film. And then Ron Perlman was younger. He's kind of old, but he was younger in this film. And they definitely did not make him look good in this film.
No.
He has he's like bald with like a little bit of hair.
Yeah.
Or something. But I mean,
why he's so angry? He got the frowny face.
He just reminded me too much of like a neo-Nazi. I think is really what
I think that was the point.
I think
though.
that's what they were trying to do.
They were trying to do, but they didn't. But again, the character development, they didn't really explain why he's like racist and.
No, they really didn't.
I mean, he's already got that going for him, and then he's also against like half-bloods because he's a pure vampire.
So, what were your initial thoughts on both of the films?
I mean, we sort of already like got into it, but for me, it was really nostalgic to go back and watch these, which is kind of weird to say for like a gory horror film, but it was just because I watched them when I was super young, and then Blade was always a badass. Like anytime I saw him on screen, I was like, this is the coolest shit. But then it like. I feel like this was the time where you wanted to make films that were including a lot of different people, because you watch the Blade films and they actually have a diverse cast. Like there's like Japanese people, there is Chinese people, there are black people, and
there are women.
There's women who actually have like lead roles and don't have to like rely on anybody else.
Oh yeah, the first chick, she's
she's
a final girl.
Yeah, she is.
Yeah,
actually,
and they don't even kiss. Yeah, that's the best part about the shit. There's 2 female chicks in this movie. Doesn't kiss either of them.
No, he doesn't get romantically involved with either one of them.
Which was like a big trope in the 90s.
He does. Little bit. Yeah, at the end there,
like a little bit.
Hey, it's like, I'm gonna hold you before you die. Let's watch the sunrise.
Yeah,
like,
I mean, she requests it. He takes her out. She dies very gracefully, which is surprising because that must hurt a lot.
Yep.
But you're right. Yeah, there was the 2 main characters, and we would be remiss if we didn't talk about the main doctor in the first film, who she is a hematologist, which makes sense for the film. What's her name?
N. Bush Wright.
Yes.
As Dr. Karen Jensen.
Karen Jensen, which is the whitest name I've ever heard, but it's hilarious because she's very black. So it was just like one of the good characters in the film because her role as a hematologist makes sense for them to kind of meet up. And in the movie, he was almost going to leave her because she gets bitten by Quinn, and he's going to leave her there in the middle of the hospital floor because somebody will take care of her, but then decides to take her. And even Whistler's like, what the hell are you doing? Like bringing people back.
Like father, like son.
Yeah, he saved him, so he's gonna save someone else.
What I think is he had like a flashback of his mother.
Yeah, he did. I mean, they do show something of his mom, so that makes sense.
Okay.
Yeah, they cut to his mom like reaching out, and then it's her, and it keeps cutting back and forth. So it makes sense. They did look pretty similar, but not all that much the same.
He's got mommy issues.
Blade
has mommy issues.
He never met her technically.
Yeah. And well, he's got the issues though.
Yeah.
So I don't have a mom. Mom died.
Neither parent apparently.
Yeah, neither parent.
Yeah.
He's
they
a
don't
parentless
even,
child.
They don't even bother explaining like
what happened
if
to
his
the dad.
Like, if his
what did dad even
do?
do? Well, maybe dad was killed by a vampire.
Well, that's a good point. Maybe the vampire killed his dad and bit his mom.
Yeah.
And then she got rushed to the hospital. That's a good point. I never even thought about that.
Yeah, it could totally.
Now we're just like speculating about what might have happened with his parents. But you're right. He does have
things they could have put in there to explain stuff, but it's okay.
The rave intro though.
The fucking intro is amazing.
We've talked about the intro.
I mean, okay, but you need to talk about the fucking kills, like the dude, staking him to the roof.
Yeah, that was pretty great. Yep.
I like the girl who just goes ape shit and like runs up to him and then he just shotguns her in the face. It's just like
and then you've got the blade boomerang where he like throws it around the room and it like decapitates everyone.
Decapitates everybody.
Super silly.
I like that
I feel like Xena did it first.
We gotta look it up. I'm fairly sure you're right.
I feel like Xena did it first, and they were like, "Dude, let's do like a move from Xena in there."
Fuck
Hell yeah!
And then he's like holding that weapon in the like poster of the third film, So like that's the
Yeah.
weapon that he was using. But did you guys know that fucking Stan Lee was supposed to have his cameo in the intro?
What?
Yeah, he was supposed to be one of the cops that showed up and found Quinn, but they cut it for some reason. And they didn't put it in the final one. So technically, this is one of the movies that's Marvel that does not have a Stan Lee cameo.
That's not fair.
Sad day.
Yeah. I will cry for about 5 minutes.
Right, rest in peace, Stan Lee. But, I mean, what did you guys first think of the film? Because I know you've mentioned some parts of it, but was there anything else?
So, my initial thoughts?
Yeah.
I had a more enjoyable time watching Blade 2 than I did Blade 1. However, I liked the soundtrack of Blade 1 more.
Right.
Because I think that it suited the atmosphere that they were going for, and that they could have done the same thing in the second one. As much as I do love me some slamming hip-hop beats sometimes, I feel like it was like ill-placed like in the second movie in like areas. And I don't think that it made sense. It didn't suit the atmosphere that the first one created.
I agree with this entirely.
I don't. I'm at odds with both of you. I really, really like the music in the second one.
Well, here's the thing. Like, when seeing the intro, we were watching this movie with friends, and like the boomerang part and like the whole intro with all the killing, I was just like, so this is what this kind of movie is like. Okay, so this is what this movie is about. This is the tone they're going
starts
for.
with a rave, so it's like they do give you that EDM music like right up front.
This is like perfect. Like, I know what I'm going for. Like cheesy, fucking amazing 90s.
Totally.
It's so 90s. It's telling me like everything's extreme.
Yeah,
it's like extreme Nickelodeon.
It's late 90s, like early 2000s, so it makes sense. They had the tiny glasses.
Yeah, they're gonna
tiny sunglasses.
That's adorable.
It works. I'll tell you why I liked the second one though, because of all of the people that they had for the music.
Yeah, and I thought the story was a little more interesting, as well as I think the characters were just a little bit more interesting.
It kind of reminds me of a D&D campaign.
It really did.
I'm into it.
Like them.
That's probably why you liked it so much.
going into the club, like all of them searching different rooms. Like, one of the dudes has a fucking warhammer.
Yes.
I mean, his name is Lighthammer.
Oh my god, it's so fucking cool. I missed the name entirely.
Yeah. Well, they don't ever say it. Well,
He's
they
the
say
barbarian in the group.
They say it once.
They got all the roles fulfilled.
I mean, technically, yeah.
Blade is just a rogue fighter. I called it.
I do like their fucking guns too that are loaded with the sunlight.
Hell yeah. They have the sunlight, the UV grenades are also fucking sick.
Oh, at the end of the second one? Yeah. That is, I like that scene because they've basically made these little bombs that only work on vampires. It's not going to do anything else to, like, if Blade just stood by it. So it works. It works for those scenes. It's like a specific vampire weapon.
And, like, for Blade, he has to take supplements, too, to be able to withstand this kind of shit. He's, like, in the first movie multiple times, they have to inject him with a certain type of thing.
Well, he's doing that so that he doesn't drink blood. It's a serum to suppress his bloodthirst.
Oh,
yeah, that's what it is. Yeah, that's what he's doing all the time.
Yeah,
that's why he's shooting up and whatnot, because his body needs to feed.
Do we ever figure out what it is?
He's
like garlic.
Yeah,
in with
it's
other shit.
garlic extract that like reduces his need to feed.
But it's not working as well. And so that's why the doctor, the hematologist, starts trying to make something that'll help him.
He starts building up a tolerance to it.
Yeah, it's when he goes to see his friend in that weird shop, and he's like, here's some stolen watches in exchange for this serum.
Which is pretty funny when you meet Whistler the first time, because he's just fucking throwing like gas all over the fucking car.
That
made
me so
lights
mad.
Up a cigarette immediately.
He like starts the pump and then brings it over to the car and spills it all along the side of this really nice muscle car. And then lights up a cigarette while he's filling up the gas. And I'm just like, this is the worst fucking thing. It made me so mad watching it. I was like, you're going to like light everything on fire right now, sir. But it was just, he's a hilarious character because he's not
It was a moment to be like, look, Whistler don't give a fuck.
Yeah, exactly. He does not give a fuck about any of this shit. And it works out well. But I have to point out that there's just so many memorable lines from this movie. One of the first ones that you get is Quinn, who is just charred after being burned by Blade. He sees Blade in the hospital and he's like, get out of my way, you freak. And he's the one who's just burnt and charred. And it's one of the funniest scenes because you're like, what the fuck? He's like freaking out and just runs out the fucking window. And then the cops show up and they shoot Blade. And he looks at them. He's like, "Motherfuckers, did you lose your goddamn mind?" And they're like, "Oh, they don't know what to do after that." But then, like, how is there like 8 cops suddenly in the hospital?
Yeah, they're just boom. They're on the scene.
They're there. They fucking start shooting immediately. Like, these are like the most on it cops.
Well, I will say that the police probably followed the ambulance back after the strange bloodbath to, hear results on the thing, and were probably hanging around the area.
The hospital was empty.
Oh shit!
It was like nighttime. It was 3 a.m.
Nothing makes sense. It's okay.
Well, not only that, but then they like jump out the window to the other building, and then they have that guy show up with his fucking rifle, and I'm like, what? They just have SWAT available? Like,
just on call.
Yeah,
on call SWAT.
He just shows up with his fucking AR rifle and starts shooting him, and I'm like, this isn't. And then later on, you don't ever see like any cops ever again. Like, that's just the only scene they're in. Besides that one guy who's trying to get like the blood delivery to the one club, which is pretty funny because it's like a Japanese club where they're doing like the baby metal sort of shit, where they're doing like the singing along with the electronic music. You guys remember that?
Yeah, that was fucking dope.
Yeah, I was like, this is great. There's all these old Japanese men smoking cigarettes and drinking.
Probably all vampires.
Probably all vampires. They don't even move. They don't give a fuck about what's going on in the club.
And then they take the familiar all the way deep into the fucking dungeon where we're introduced to that giant one.
The big fat vampire.
Oh god, what was that? What was that vampire?
That was Blade 1. Is the big fat vampire that's like the...
He's like an archivist.
Yeah, basically, and they just kind of fry him with UV over and over again until he tells them what they want.
I think it's super funny because it's Karen, right? Is her name?
Yes.
Karen Jensen. So he's like,
I still don't know why they named her Karen, but
this
whatever.
motherfucker moves, you light him up, all right? And like she's like... She's just explaining their entire diabolical plan, and then like, okay, and then Karen just opens the thing and just sets her on fire. He's like, "Why'd you do that?"
I really liked their relationship in the film. They don't push this like closeness or love story for them.
I'm glad
she kind of like forces herself into helping him, and he just doesn't care. He's like, "Oh, fine, you want to help? Then come along. Can you use this shit?" And he really doesn't question her at any point.
Even off screen, I mean, she finds a fucking cure for her bite.
It's so downplayed. She finds a cure for being bitten by a vampire. Like, if you're a human and you get bitten, you can reverse it with her cure.
They don't even like mention it at all in the second movie. They just don't heighten it up in the first.
She finds a new weapon for him. She finds a weapon that will like explode vampires because of the way it mixes with their blood.
Yep, that was one of my favorite things.
Which Blade uses at the end to kill Deacon Frost.
Yeah.
So it's like
dope,
that
too.
ends up being something. And
they turn into giant tomatoes, man.
Well, at the end they suggest that she's gonna go with him to assist him more, but they didn't bring her in for the second movie, which is kind of disappointing.
Yeah, I guess that's kind of like the continuity between the two of them definitely gets dispersed easily.
But it could also be a very long time.
No, I mean, it's not too bad because the thing is, he's like, you'll go back to your normal life. I'll go back to killing vampires. And then,
I didn't think she would go back to her normal life. I thought the way they made it end there was like she was going to help him.
Right. But I mean, it picks up in Eastern Europe, and then it's been years since he's found Whistler.
I love that fucking like flunky vampire that he meets with his little like fur boa and weird glasses and bald head, and he's like,
that guy.
Yeah, he's like, I'll catch you later. And then he ends up killing him at the very end of the film, which is funny because he's going in to see like a live show of like a stripper behind a glass wall, and it's Blade.
Yeah, he was out. He was like, hey, the strippers inside there, they're alive, right? Last I checked, yeah.
Some Jamaican dude. He's like, yeah, last time I checked, they're still alive.
Okay, here's the thing though. I thought the dude was like, fucking referencing like ED near the end of it, because he's like, okay, I got some fucking, what are those?
Oh, the razor blades?
Razor blades, just in case. Like, is your vampire abilities not working right? Do you need something to help you get blood? What's up, buddy?
That is true, actually. Well, no, because you wouldn't be able to touch her, so it would be all for him. So
weirdo. Okay, so
this gets into this gets into like what the fuck are the vampires doing to themselves? Like they're shown to be like self-mutilating each other in the club, which is funny because the club is called House of Pain. So it's like they end up going into this place and they're like cutting each other open. A couple like makes out with razor blades in their mouth. Like they're doing all sorts of weird shit.
That was funny as fuck.
Yeah. So I can only assume that he's just gonna like cut himself, I guess. I don't know. Maybe it's a vampire masturbation or something.
Yeah, it's like or like some sort of like a. How do I would describe that? What is that? like a masochistic sort of thing
Yeah,
that
exactly.
vampires are. A lot of vampires in these movies seem pretty masochistic in general. Like they live off the thrill of the hunt and pain and things like that.
Yeah, they connect all those things, especially with like blood and bloodletting and things like that. So it makes sense.
It's like every girl you knew at Hot Topic in early 2000s.
But manifested.
But manifested into a fictional element.
I mean, but good for them. Good for both movies for creating interesting characters, for having two female characters that were really interesting and kind of held their own and had their own autonomy through the whole film. Like in the second one, she like decides that she's gonna help Blade because she does not like what her father's done and her brother, and kind of pays the price for it by getting bitten and then just dies at the end. But before that, she's very capable. She knows how to fight. She almost kills Blade. Like they end up in a draw that first time they fight. So you have to assume that she's as strong as Blade and is able to possibly kill him if that was like their mission. And so she's not shown to be like this weak character that's following him. She ends up being really important for the story. And she was interesting. You were able to get more of a backstory with her because she's part of that royal vampire elite.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's. I mean,
also, I liked all their outfits.
Well, their outfits are great.
Like her in particular, she had a really cool like neck piece.
Yeah, the one that goes around the back of her scalp.
Well, she had the one thing that was like, it was almost like a choker, but it was all gold, and then she had that piece on her hair, the one that like going around her scalp. That one was cool. Like it was like a bun holder for your hair.
Really ornate bun holder.
Right? Yeah, that was cool. Shit. Now that I think about it, what did you guys think of all of the costuming for like all of the characters?
It all looks really sleek.
It's a lot of skin exposed
and cool.
Honestly,
yeah.
There's a lot of dudes who are shirtless in this film.
It's stylized hella.
It's what?
It's stylized hella. I mean, that's for the aesthetic, man. Everything.
Yeah. I also like that nobody in the vampire clubs questioned them when they walked in with all their weapons.
Yeah, nobody was like, "Oh, they're just doing a thing."
Just fully loaded. Like,
I hope they start shooting.
Yeah,
like
like no one questioned them.
And
it
was funny too when Ron Perlman and the other dude have that exchange. They're like, we should just start blowing these motherfuckers, like just going off and shooting everybody. And he's like, "Yeah, I'm down." And he's pointing right at Blade, and then he's like, Hey, you guys got you beat, man. Blade's just chilling. Everyone's dancing around him. He's just fucking arms tucked, laser point on Ron Perlman.
Easy.
Fucking heart. Yeah, the fashion in this movie, they did a great job designing all these outfits. They fit what they were going for. The early 2000s, late 90s vibe.
How did you guys, we kind of talked about it before, but how did you feel about them bringing this little team together? Because I didn't really know anything about them, so I kind of didn't care about them for the whole movie. The only reason I cared about some of them is because I knew who they were, like actor-wise.
Yeah.
Otherwise, like they were pretty like boring for what was being on screen. Ron Perlman was only enjoyable because he's such a dick, and then you get to see him later, and he gets cut in half. So it's like
it reminded me of Alien Resurrection, but not as good.
Dude, his scarring from the light looks like someone smeared peanut butter on his head.
Oh. That's true.
It does. Yeah,
he had pretty bad makeup.
Some Jif on your head.
Here's some Jif. This was some chunky Jif.
The budget
on his
ran
face.
out. I went to Walmart.
Oh, that's terrible.
Yeah. Other than knowing who the actors were, I mean, they remind me of a D&D campaign party.
I have to wonder though how good the movie would have been if it didn't have cool music. Because I feel like the music set up the tone for a lot of it.
Music makes the cut.
Yeah, like I think, like imagine them walking up without any music. It was just like basic soundtrack. It wouldn't have been as cool.
I mean, there's that whole thing about when Star Wars, like the first cut was made. They're just like, dude, this is god awful. And then they're like, then we heard the music.
Then we got John Williams.
We are blessed.
Yeah, fucking, they got lucky by getting John Williams for that shit because.
So like it's the same thing with this movie. The music is vital to the aesthetic and everything going for it. Without it or with just some boring shit, it's not gonna hit the same.
Well, I mean, for both movies, they had fucking like Cypress Hill, they had Ice Cube, Busta Rhymes, they had fucking Fabulous, Redman, the Gorillaz.
I could have swore
Fatboy Slim, like they had all of the people for these.
I could have swore though in the first soundtrack for the first movie they didn't have any rap in there. Did they have rap in that? I didn't hear a single rap song.
It was mostly electronic.
That's
like
what I'm saying.
music.
I was so confused because when I looked up the fucking soundtrack on Spotify, I'm like, 13 of these tracks are hip hop.
Maybe we just didn't notice it.
I don't know.
It was like
Maybe
it
I
was
was
blended in with everything else.
I was just looking for the.
Oh, was he?
That's all I was looking for.
I mean, I'm always gonna be a super fan of the blood rave music and the intro scene of the first movie, which is fucking awesome. And it's so over stylized, and I feel like it bled into everything about the movie.
Bled.
Oh yeah, I did not do that on purpose. It was all the theatrical acting. It was over the top. It was stylized. It was enjoyable because of that, and I felt like it led really well into watching the action scenes. Like, this is something that I enjoyed a lot. They didn't cut away whenever you were seeing people get hit. I mean, they did like wrestling moves in this film. Like, Blade does like a full wrestling move in front of Reinhardt, fucking Ron Perlman's character. You know what I'm talking about? Where he lifts the dude and then just falls back and like breaks him on the glass.
Yep. Yes.
I was like, this is like a straight up WWE wrestling move. And just like drops him and then just pops up, and it's really comical because he jumps up and he's like ready to fight him, and then he has like Ron Perlman's character has the most fucked up line I think in all of the movies, where he's like, oh, you know, like my daddy said before he murdered my mom, it's like, if you want something done right, you got to do it yourself. And then tries to murder him, and you're like, wow, this dude's fucked.
That's a great line.
What did you guys have any criticisms of the film? I know it was enjoyable. I know it was very stylized, but was there anything you were like, I don't really like this about the film?
Some lines feel a little flat sometimes. Some of them are like most of them are pretty good on like a hilarious level, like when they're just like so edgy, it's kind of funny in a way. And then some of them are pretty awesome, you know. I feel like you have to really suspend your expectations a little bit and whatnot when watching this movie.
Oh, totally, yeah.
Sort of, because it's really action heavy, and it's not really like, you're not going to get a lot of in-depth storytelling and things like that from it. And the CGI was also just kind of like okay sometimes, and then sometimes it just didn't look very good at all. But I think when I was younger, I appreciated it more than I do now.
What'd you think, Mer?
I thought the death animation for like the skeleton, like when it actually like comes down really fast, was pretty impressive. But the skeleton animation when they're doing the ritual was god awful.
It was pretty bad.
And same with the blood when Deacon gets cut in half.
Oh,
and like it's like
gets pulled back together.
Yeah, that was really bad.
I mean, this was 1998, but
other than that, that was for the first movie. Second movie, my only complaint is that, well, I mean, obviously they're related, but the main villain and the main head vampire look super fucking similar. I couldn't tell who was who at some points.
Yep.
If I didn't hear the accent.
These are some legit criticisms.
The script was weak as hell in both of them. That's just, it's just, it wasn't meant to be script heavy, so I understand. Like, they just wanted to show you cool action, cool characters. Wesley Snipes made both films for me because he's so fucking good as Blade.
Yeah.
He's hilarious in all of the things he does. He like would do martial arts for the sake of looking cool. Like, none of the moves were meant to like really hurt anybody at some points. It was just flashy. And he was like all for it every single time.
There was that part where him and another vampire just fucking punching the air.
Kicking and punching the air, not even really hitting each other. Yeah, that shit was really funny.
Oh, but we also have to talk about... Okay, sorry.
No, go ahead.
Last kill I just wanted to talk about was when the dude who has lived this entire time through the first movie, he was burned to a crisp and then he was brought back. He got his arm chopped off, then it came back over and over. He's like, we're going to fucking go. We're going to fight. And he takes like that string and just fucking decapitates him immediately.
I have to point out that he was leaving him alive so that he could track Frost. So at this point, he already knew where he was. So he's like, I'm gonna fucking kill him now, and then just immediately decapitated him.
Damn, I didn't even think about that. I was like, why did he keep him alive? This guy has
he was just using him. He was just using him to track Frost.
God damn it, Blade, you're fucking mean.
It's funny as hell though when Frost is like, Quinn, put out your arm, and because he's holding Blade's sword. He's like, what, man? Like, come on, like, you know, I just got it back. Like, what? He's like, put out your arm, and he's like, oh, I'm just messing with you. And then he laughs so loud, where he's just like, oh no, he was just fucking with me. Look, he's fucking this guy. And I was like, oh, he's such a weird like surfer type character, which didn't make any sense for a vampire. He at one point even is like, I'm gonna be like a naughty vampire. I'm gonna be a naughty vampire. And you're like, what the fuck is this guy talking about? It was really funny. He was a like comic relief character. And it worked out pretty well, I think. Plus, he's like what else is he in? He's in other shit. Isn't that the guy from like Lord of the Rings?
Who?
The guy who plays Quinn.
No.
I'm like pretty sure he's in something else.
No, he's in something else.
But anyway, do you guys have any favorite scenes? I know you mentioned some of them.
Favorite scenes from Blade? There's the fight with Nyssa, the fight with the last vampire, both of which from the second one.
With
the
Nomak?
entire with Nomak at the very end. That's really good. Blade's fight when he's in the rave and everything leading up to it is all really fun and super awesome. But most of those are like probably my favorite scenes are like the big, like the one-on-one fights or like the mass slaughter fights.
Right, yeah. What about you, Mer? Don't joke.
The intro when they go into the safe house in the second movie, where there's like,
okay.
Hey, it's me, it's Storm. Let me in. Cool. Just uses him as a meat shield.
Oh, yeah.
Fucking
Oh,
shit
yeah,
up.
that's a good one. That's a good one.
Yeah.
Yeah, he even comments. He's like, it's not silver, but it still burns like hell.
That was a good action scene. Especially when it leads up to the motorcycle shit.
Yeah, the like just running up and like jumping over a motorcycle.
Yeah, that was fun. Other than that, I'd say for the first one, I'm blanking right now. Come back to me.
It's kind of a smaller scene, but it was hilarious when the leader of the vampire group in the first one, Gitano, or I forget what his first name is, but he comes in and he finds Frost looking at the archives, and he tells him he's like not allowed in there. And Frost comes up to him and like caresses his face. And he delivers one of the funnier lines where he's just like, you bore me, and then just leaves. And I'm like, it wasn't, hey, don't touch me. It wasn't like, what the fuck are you doing? It was like, you're not interesting. Like, you bore me. As in, like, he's possibly queer or gay or something. And it's just like, you're boring. Like, why would you come on to me?
Oh my God.
Like, why would you come on to me in this moment? Like, you're not attractive. And it was just funny because it was so, like, not what you expect it for the scene. I thought he was like gonna attack him, but then he's just like, you bore me, and leaves. And like I was like, oh, but like
vampire posturing.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, that's exactly what it was.
Yeah,
it was
posturing.
Like them posturing to each other, and I was like, what the fuck?
Him just being like, you're fucking beneath me.
Yep.
And the other one just being like, you're not supposed to be in there, exacting authority.
Yeah.
And then you've got Frost who gets up and is just like, you're fucking boring.
I
dude.
love it because he's like, why are you yelling? Like, this is a library. He's just like, you fucking, he's such a little prick. So you're like, that's one of the funnier scenes. And then the other one that I was thinking of was from the second film. When you first get introduced to the Blood Pack, they all have like their little greeting. And it was just funny. Like, to see them do their like little group intro, and you don't know anything about them, but you're just like, this looks like a video game. This looks like an intro where you get to choose a character, and you're like, you get to choose one of the 5, and like their outfits are just like what you would expect in a goth nightclub, and it worked out really well. But those were like my favorites, besides like the many action scenes. But those were just something that was so stylized, and it made me it jumped out to me, and I remembered those.
Looking back, I like the kill of Quinn with the wire in the first movie,
just
and
takes
then
his head off.
the second one I would have to go with is probably when they're examining the hybrid creature, and they're like, it uses blood, and so like if it's out of blood because it's not the host, it's not the original, it will die. And they're like, here, let me see. They cut someone's finger and they drop one bit of blood, and all the guts and everything start wriggling and start moving. That was fun.
Yeah, I remember that because Nyssa is like examining the body, and she cuts her finger.
That was great. That was really cool.
Well, she tells Scud, she's like, open the mouth, Scud, and he's like, what? No, I'm not gonna do that shit. And then fucking Blade's like, sissy.
That was so good.
He's like teasing him. Like,
that was a good one.
Yeah, he's got a lot of good lines. He has like the final line he delivers in the first one. What does he say?
Like, some motherfuckers always will try to skate uphill.
Yeah, they're always trying to ice skate uphill. Which is funny because his last name is Frost, so it's like an inserted joke that no one really noticed. But besides that, did you guys have any final thoughts about either one of the films?
It's a fun 90s comic book movie, but I feel like it was just like a stepping stone for what Marvel would do later. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like,
No,
as
yeah.
far as how in-depth they were going to take it and whatnot, I think they learned a lot from what the Blade movies did.
Hell yeah.
And that's where you got your early Spider-Mans and whatnot. So you're like, Spider-Man 1 and 2.
They were expecting those to bomb too.
Yeah, they really were.
The first two were actually pretty cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What about you, Mer? What do you think?
I think
Any
they're
final thoughts?
really fun action movies that are heavily stylized.
Yeah.
And they're stepping stones for what Marvel will be, like Mitch
Yeah.
said.
Oh yeah, they
Without
owe
Blade, you
these
don't
a
have
lot.
Iron Man.
Exactly.
And especially with the money. The money
Yeah.
plays a big factor.
Oh, totally.
I mean,
Made him so much.
we
fucking money.
didn't really dwell on fucking Trinity, and not a lot of people like to, but
Well,
that helped as
I mean,
well.
go watch Trinity. It's funny. Like, it's an enjoyable movie, but don't expect a good movie. I gotta say,
Hey.
don't expect a good movie. It's enjoyable
go.
if you go into it knowing it's trash, and it's really fucking funny because all the characters in it are just awful. And having like a wrestler as like a vampire is hilarious because he's beefy and like he doesn't like it doesn't fit well. And then they have these awkward prosthetics for their teeth, which like makes their mouth kind of come out for some reason. Like it's like pushing against the inside of their mouth, so it makes their whole mouth look awkward.
Oh.
Yeah.
I haven't seen Trinity in a long time.
Yeah, it's funny. I liked it because it had Ryan Reynolds, and he just won't shut the fuck up the whole movie. And
And
Blade
we want
even
him to not
comments
shut
on
the
it.
fuck up. We want him to keep talking.
Yeah, no, well, yeah, because he keeps making like witty commentary through the whole thing, and like annoys the fuck out of Blade, which is pretty funny too. So it's like it's a good movie. You also get to see a weird version of Dracula. It's like some like middle-aged white dude. I didn't understand. But go watch Blade Trinity.
Yeah. I really like them for what they are, just cheesy 90s filled action.
Oh, totally. Well, that's pretty much the end of it. So before I let everybody go, I want to let you guys know that we're super easy to find. We're on all the streaming services, so we're on the main ones. We're on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or pretty much anywhere else you find podcasts.
John,
What's
we
that?
didn't give these movies a rating out of 10.
Oh, you know what? That's fair.
We need to give them a
Yeah.
rating.
Let's see. The first one I would probably give like an 8.
Okay.
And then the second one, I'd probably give it like a 7 or a 7.5.
I'll go 7.7 for both of them.
So
I was kind of leaning towards that. Like, they're both 7s in my
Yeah.
opinion,
yeah.
basically. I mean, maybe I'll give them a 7.5 for the
But
sake
go
of it.
watch them. Like they're worth a rewatch too because
Yeah.
they're fun to.
They're not the worst things ever, but they could have been a lot better.
Yeah, but I think they did the best with what was available at
Yeah.
the time. Like there was like one of the few comic book adaptations, and it worked out really well.
All right, yep, that's
Yeah.
all. That's all I wanted to do.
Yeah.
You can continue with your typical and your outro now.
Find us on all of the social medias. We are at BDTGH_podcast or BDTGHpodcast.com. And you can find our website where we are able to link to all of the streaming sites, or you can listen to the episodes within the website. You don't have to go anywhere else. And if you could, please leave a review for us at the Apple Podcast. Helps us get more reviews, more listens, and we're able to be seen on the site more easily. And then we do have a shirt sale coming up really soon. We're getting the designs down, and we're talking to the artists. We just want to make sure we have everything right before we put it on sale. And it'll be on a pre-order status, so you'll order it, and then at the end of the sale, we'll ship those out. And so something to think about. Also, our Patreon page is up now. So you can go and join. One of the tiers, you are able to get all of the bonus content, which would include individual episodes from each of the hosts. Mitch has his with video games. Murr's going to have his with, what was it exactly, Murr? With
Monster movies.
monster movies, so like Godzilla type stuff.
Yeah, kaiju films and just like general, just cheesy 50s and shit.
Also mine, which would be just some afterthoughts that we've forgotten during the podcast, where I might like rant for 10 minutes. But besides that, we do also have a bonus content on there. So bloopers that are happening in the beginning of the episode, because we don't always start recording right away. And we do talk about random stuff at the beginning, as well as bonus content, which would include some of the outlines that we use for the podcast to keep us on track. But you can view all of that stuff at the Patreon page. There's a link on our website, and there's also a post that'll go up, and you'll be able to find the Patreon page really easily. But thanks so much for listening. I hope everyone has a good night.
I'm Mitch.
I'm Murr.
And I'm Jonathan. Thank you.
Go watch the new season of Castlevania, motherfuckers.
Yeah.